"Don't get in the car." The small voice cut through the evening air like a knife. Vincent Romano, feared boss of the Chicago Underworld, froze with his hand on the door handle of his black Bentley. The parking garage was supposed to be secure, empty except for his bodyguards who had already swept the area. Yet here stood a skinny kid, maybe 11 years old, with dirt on his face and panic in his dark eyes. "What did you say?" Vincent's voice was steel, his grey eyes scanning the shadows. His hand instinctively moved toward the gun beneath his tailored jacket. "There's a bomb!" the boy shouted, pointing frantically at the car. "I saw them. 2 men in black jackets. They put something under your car and ran." Vincent's blood ran cold. In his 15 years running the Romano family, he'd survived 7 assassination attempts. His enemies were getting bolder and apparently less careful about witnesses. "Tommy," he barked to his bodyguard, "get the bomb squad now." The boy stepped closer, his small frame trembling. "They had tools, sir. They were under there for like 10 minutes. I was hiding behind that pillar because—" He paused, looking embarrassed. "Because I was trying to see if anyone would give me some change." Vincent studied the kid's face. No fear of him, just genuine concern. In his world, people either cowered or schemed. This boy was doing neither. "Before I continue with this incredible story of how a stranger's child changed everything for our powerful mob boss, I need to ask you something. If you're enjoying this dramatic tale and want to see how Vincent's dangerous world collides with unexpected love, please hit that subscribe button right now. And tell me in the comments, where are you watching this from tonight? Are you Team Vincent already, or do you think he should be more careful about getting involved with civilians? Hit that like button if you're ready for this romance to get even more dangerous. Now back to our story, because what happens next will surprise you. "What's your name, kid?" Vincent asked, his voice softer now. "Michael, sir. Michael Chen." The boy's chin lifted with surprising dignity, despite his obviously worn clothes. "My mom says always help people when you can, even if they're—" He trailed off, clearly recognizing who Vincent might be. Vincent almost smiled. Smart kid. "Even if they're what, Michael?" "Even if they're scary-looking businessmen with really expensive cars," Michael finished diplomatically. This time, Vincent did smile. A real one. "Your mother sounds like a wise woman. Where is she?" "Working. She cleans offices downtown. Night shift." Michael's voice carried a mix of pride and loneliness that hit Vincent unexpectedly hard. Tommy returned, face grim. "Boss, bomb squad's on the way. Kid's right. There's definitely something attached to the undercarriage." Vincent's jaw tightened. The Torino family was making their move, just as his informants had warned. But instead of anger, he felt something else entirely. Gratitude toward this brave little boy who'd just saved his life. "Michael," Vincent said, pulling out his wallet. "You hungry?" The boy's eyes widened at the thick roll of bills, but he shook his head. "Mum says don't take money from strangers." "Smart woman," Vincent repeated, impressed. "How about this? You like pizza?" Michael nodded eagerly. "There's a place called Gino's 2 blocks from here. You know it?" When Michael nodded again, Vincent pulled out a business card and wrote something on the back. "You give this to the owner, tell him Vincent sent you. Get whatever you want. And they'll call your mum to come get you safely. But sir, what about— the bomb squad will handle it, and Michael." Vincent's voice grew serious. "You saved my life tonight. I don't forget things like that. Ever." As the boy clutched the card and started to leave, Vincent called out once more. "Michael, what's your mother's name?" Elena Chen," the boy called back, already jogging toward the exit with more energy than he'd shown all evening. "Elena." Vincent found himself repeating the name as the bomb squad arrived and confirmed what Michael had seen. 6 pounds of C4, enough to level half the parking garage. The Torinos weren't just trying to kill him. They wanted to make a statement. But all Vincent could think about was meeting the woman who'd raised such a remarkable son. Eleanor Chen rushed through the revolving doors of Gino's famous pizza, her heart hammering against her ribs. The phone call had come during her break at the Meridian Tower, where she was halfway through cleaning the 15th floor of corporate offices. "Mrs. Chen, your son is here at Gino's. He's safe, but someone named Vincent wants to make sure you pick him up personally." Vincent. The name meant nothing to her, but the fact that a stranger had her 11-year-old son at 10 p.m. on a Tuesday night meant everything. She'd grabbed her coat, told her supervisor it was an emergency, and caught the first bus downtown. Now, scanning the warm, tomato-scented interior of the famous pizzeria, she spotted Michael immediately. He sat in a corner booth, looking smaller than usual in the red vinyl seat, working his way through what appeared to be half a large pepperoni pizza. Across from him sat a man who made Elena's breath catch. He was perhaps mid-30s, with dark hair and sharp features that belonged in magazines rather than pizza joints. His suit probably cost more than Elena made in 3 months, and when he turned to look at her, his grey eyes held an intensity that made her stomach flutter involuntarily. "Mom!" Michael jumped up, sauce around his mouth, relief flooding his voice. Elena hurried over, immediately pulling her son into a fierce hug. "Are you okay? What happened? How did you—" She looked up at the stranger, suddenly aware of her cleaning uniform and the fact that she probably smelled like industrial floor cleaner. The man stood smoothly, extending his hand. "Mrs. Chen, I'm Vincent Romano. Your son saved my life tonight." Eleanor blinked. She'd heard that name before, whispered in the break rooms at work, mentioned in news reports her co-workers discussed in hushed tones. Vincent Romano, alleged organized crime figure, though never convicted of anything. Dangerous was the word most often used. Yet here he was, looking at her son with something like genuine fondness. "Saved your life?" Eleanor's voice came out higher than intended. "He warned me about a car bomb," Vincent said simply. "The police confirmed it. Without Michael's warning, I'd be dead." Elena's knees went weak. She sank into the booth, pulling Michael close. "A bomb? Oh my God, Michael, you could have been hurt." "I was hiding, Mum. I was safe, but I couldn't let him get hurt when I could warn him," Michael said earnestly. "You always say we help people when we can." Vincent's expression softened as he watched the interaction. "Your son has more courage than most of my employees, Mrs. Chen, and better judgment." Eleanor studied Vincent's face, looking for signs of the monster she'd heard about in whispers. Instead, she saw a man who seemed genuinely grateful and surprisingly gentle with her son. "I don't know how to thank you for keeping him safe," she said quietly. "No thanks needed. Michael's the hero tonight." Vincent glanced at his watch, then back at Eleanor. "It's late. Can I have my driver take you both home?" Every warning bell Eleanor had ever developed rang at once. Accept help from Vincent Romano. Let her son get deeper involved with whatever world this man inhabited. But Michael looked exhausted. The bus stop was 6 blocks away, and this man had just bought her son dinner and kept him safe when he could have simply walked away. "That's very kind, but we'll manage," Elena said carefully. Vincent nodded, as if he'd expected that response. "Of course. But Mrs. Chen, can I ask you something?" Eleanor tensed. "What you've taught Michael about helping people, about doing the right thing even when it's scary, that's rare. Especially in this city." Vincent's voice held something Eleanor couldn't quite identify. "You should be proud." Despite herself, Elena felt warmth spread through her chest. How long had it been since someone noticed what she was trying to do with Michael? How hard she worked to give him values that would keep him safe and good in a world that rewarded neither. "Thank you," she said softly. "That means more than you know." Vincent smiled, and Elena realized with a start that it completely transformed his face. The hardness disappeared, replaced by something that made her think of the boy he might have been once. "Michael," Vincent said, turning to her son, "you have my card. If you or your mum ever need anything at all, you call me. Understood?" Michael nodded solemnly. "Yes, sir. And Mr. Romano, thanks for the pizza. It was the best I've ever had." As they prepared to leave, Elena found herself looking back at Vincent Romano, still sitting in the booth, watching them go with an expression she couldn't quite read. Walking to the bus stop, Michael chattering excitedly about his adventure, Elena tried to shake the feeling that her life had just taken a turn she wasn't prepared for. She especially tried to ignore how Vincent's smile had made her feel like she was someone worth noticing. 3 days later, Elena was knee-deep in quarterly reports and coffee stains on the 20th floor of the Meridian Tower, when her supervisor, Mrs. Patterson, appeared at her cart. "Elena, you need to come with me." Elena's heart dropped. She'd been late Monday night because of the incident with Michael, and despite her perfect record over 2 years, she'd been waiting for the consequences. "Ma'am, about Monday night I can explain." "It's not about Monday." Mrs. Patterson's voice was strange, almost nervous. "Someone wants to see you in the executive conference room." Eleanor followed her supervisor down the hallway, her mind racing. Executive conference room. She cleaned those offices, but she'd never been summoned to one. Her uniform felt even more shabby than usual as they passed lawyers and business executives in their tailored suits. Mrs. Patterson knocked on frosted glass doors, then opened them to reveal a room Eleanor had only seen empty. Now it held one occupant, sitting at the far end of the long mahogany table. Vincent Romano. He stood as she entered, and Eleanor noticed he looked different in the daylight, streaming through floor-to-ceiling windows. More human somehow, though no less imposing. "Mrs. Chen, thank you for coming. Please sit." Eleanor remained standing, acutely aware of Mrs. Patterson backing out and closing the doors behind her. "Mr. Romano, I don't understand. How did you know where I work? I wanted to make sure you and Michael were okay after the other night. And to properly thank you." Elena's defenses went up. "We're fine, and Michael already thanked you for the pizza." Vincent studied her for a moment, then gestured again to the chairs. "Please, 5 minutes." Against her better judgment, Elena sat on the edge of a chair, ready to bolt. "I've been thinking about what Michael said that night. About you working nights to clean offices." Vincent's voice was careful, respectful. "That's hard work, and these buildings aren't always safe at night. I can take care of myself and my son, Mr. Romano." "I'm sure you can. You've done an incredible job with Michael." Vincent leaned forward slightly. "But I also know what it's like to worry about providing for family, to make difficult choices." Something in his tone made Elena really look at him. Behind the expensive clothes and confident demeanor, she glimpsed something familiar, the weight of responsibility, the exhaustion that came with carrying everything alone. "What do you want?" she asked quietly. "I want to offer you a job." Elena blinked. "Excuse me?" "I need someone to manage the community outreach for my legitimate businesses, someone who understands what working families need, who has judgment I can trust." Vincent paused. "Someone who raised a son brave enough to save a stranger's life." "I don't have a college degree. I clean offices. You have something better, you have character, and you understand this neighborhood better than any MBA I could hire." Vincent's grey eyes were steady on hers. "The job pays $60,000 a year, plus health insurance and education fund for Michael." Elena's breath caught. 60,000 was more than double what she made now. Health insurance meant Michael could finally see a dentist about his crooked front teeth that he was so self-conscious about. But this was Vincent Romano. "Mr. Romano, I appreciate the offer, but you've heard things about me," he said calmly. "You're wondering what the catch is." Eleanor nodded, grateful for his directness. "The catch is that I'm asking you to trust me when you have no reason to. The catch is that some people will judge you for working for me." Vincent's voice grew quieter. "But Elena, may I call you Elena? I give you my word that this job is completely legitimate. You'd be working with community centers, after-school programs, food banks, good work that matters." Elena studied his face, looking for deception and finding none. "Why me? You could hire anyone. Because Michael's courage didn't come from nowhere. Because you've built something good from nothing. And that's exactly what these programs need." Vincent stood, moving to the window. "And because 3 nights ago your son reminded me what decency looks like." Eleanor felt tears threaten. When was the last time someone had seen her as more than just another struggling single mother? "I need to think about it," she said finally. "Of course." Vincent pulled out another card, this one with different information. "This has my personal number. When you decide either way, call me." As Eleanor rose to leave, Vincent spoke again. "Eleanor, Michael mentioned you like books. There's a good library near the community center you'd be working with. Huge children's section." The fact that he'd remembered such a small detail, that he'd thought about what might matter to her, made Elena's heart skip in a way that terrified her. Walking back to her cleaning cart, Elena realized she was already imagining a different life. One where she wore real clothes to work, where Michael didn't have to worry about money for school trips, where she might actually be proud to tell people what she did for a living. One where Vincent Romano looked at her the way he had in that conference room, like she was someone worth believing in. Eleanor stared at Vincent's business card for the 4th time in 2 days, sitting in her tiny kitchen after Michael had gone to bed. The apartment was quiet except for the hum of their ancient refrigerator and the distant sound of traffic from the street below. $60,000, health insurance, a chance to do work that mattered, and Vincent Romano's grey eyes looking at her like she was more than just another struggling single mother. The phone rang, startling her. Elena glanced at the clock, 9:30 p.m., too late for anything good. "Hello? Mom, are you watching the news?" Michael's voice was excited, though he was supposed to be asleep. "Michael, you should be... Turn on Channel 7, right now." Elena found the remote and clicked to the local news, where a reporter stood in front of a familiar-looking building. The explosion rocked the Romano family's downtown headquarters around 6 p.m. this evening, though thankfully the building had been evacuated earlier today due to what sources say was a credible bomb threat. Eleanor's blood went cold, and the screen showed shattered glass, twisted metal and emergency vehicles with their lights flashing in the growing darkness. Vincent Romano, alleged head of the organization, was not in the building at the time, though sources suggest this may be connected to a failed attempt on his life earlier this week. Elena's hands trembled as she reached for her phone. Before she could think better of it, she was dialing the number on Vincent's card. It rang once. "Eleanor?" His voice was tense, distracted. "I saw the news. Are you okay?" There was a pause. Then Vincent's voice came back warmer. "I'm fine. Thank you for calling. Was anyone hurt?" "No casualties. We'd cleared the building." Another pause. "Elena, this doesn't change my offer about the job. The community work is completely separate from—" "I know," Elena said quickly. "That's not why I called." Silence stretched between them. "Vincent?" Elena's voice was softer now. "Are you safe? Tonight, I mean. Why does that matter to you?" His question was gentle, curious. Elena closed her eyes. Why did it matter? She barely knew this man. Everything logical told her to run the other direction. "Because Michael cares about you, and because—" She took a breath. "Because you've been kind to us." "Elena," Vincent's voice was very quiet now, "I need you to understand something. The people trying to hurt me, they won't stop. Being associated with me, even through legitimate business, it carries risks." "I'm already associated with you," Elena pointed out. "Michael saved your life, remember? If these people wanted to hurt me to get to you, they already would have." Vincent was quiet for so long Elena wondered if the call had dropped. "You're right," he said finally, "which is exactly why I've had security watching your building since Tuesday night." Eleanor's breath caught. "You what?" "Discreet security. You wouldn't have noticed them. But Elena, I couldn't live with myself if something happened to you or Michael because of what he did for me." Elena should have been angry. Should have felt violated, manipulated. Instead, she felt something else entirely. Protected. When was the last time someone had tried to keep her safe? "Thank you," she whispered, "for having you watched without permission, for caring enough to make sure we were safe." Elena's voice grew stronger. "Vincent, I've made my decision about the job. And I want it, but not just because of the money." Eleanor stood, pacing her small kitchen. "I want it because I think you're trying to do something good, and I want to be part of that. Eleanor, and I want it because I trust you." The words came out in a rush. "I don't know why, but I do. Maybe it's because of how you were with Michael, or maybe it's because you're honest about the dangers instead of pretending they don't exist. But I trust you." Vincent was quiet again then. "Can I take you and Michael to dinner tomorrow night? Somewhere public. Somewhere safe. We can talk about the job details and you can ask me anything you want to know." Elena smiled, surprising herself. "Michael would like that. And you?" Elena's heart did that fluttering thing again. "Yes, I'd like that too." After she hung up, Eleanor sat in her kitchen for a long time, looking at Vincent's card and thinking about how dramatically her life had changed in less than a week. She thought about Michael's brave voice shouting a warning to a stranger, about Vincent's gentle smile when he looked at her son, about the way he said her name like it meant something. Most of all, she thought about the way Vincent had made her feel in that conference room, not like a charity case or a victim, but like a partner in something important. For the first time in years, Elena Chen fell asleep thinking about possibilities instead of just survival. The next evening, Elena stood in front of her bedroom mirror, trying to decide between her two decent dresses. The blue one was more conservative, but made her look washed out. The red one was prettier, but might send the wrong message. "Mom, you look nervous," Michael called from the living room, where he was supposedly doing homework but actually watching for Vincent's car from the window. "I'm not nervous," Elena lied, settling on the blue dress. "It's just a business dinner. With the coolest guy we've ever met who drives a car that costs more than our apartment." Elena laughed despite herself. "Since when do you know about car prices?" "Since I looked up Bentleys online at school." Michael appeared in her doorway, grinning. "Mom, did you know his car costs like $300,000? Elena's stomach flipped. What was she thinking, agreeing to dinner with a man who lived in a completely different world? Before she could spiral further into self-doubt, her phone buzzed with a text from Vincent. "Downstairs when you're ready. No rush?" Elena looked out her window and saw Vincent leaning against a much more modest black sedan instead of the Bentley. He wore dark jeans and a sweater rather than a suit, and Elena felt a rush of gratitude for his thoughtfulness. "He's here," she called to Michael, who whooped and grabbed his jacket. Downstairs, Vincent smiled as they approached. "You look beautiful," he said to Elena, then turned to Michael. "And you look like you're ready for an adventure." "Where are we going?" Michael asked, as Vincent opened the car door for Elena first, then him. "Thought we'd try Giuseppe's. It's nothing fancy, but they make the best lasagna in the city." Elena relaxed further. Giuseppe's was a family restaurant she'd walked past countless times, but never been able to afford. Warm, welcoming, but not intimidating. During the drive, Vincent asked Michael about school, listened to his excitement about a science project, and somehow made conversation feel natural instead of awkward. Elena found herself studying his profile as he drove, noting the way his eyes crinkled when Michael made him laugh. At dinner, seated in a cozy booth with red checkered tablecloths and the smell of garlic bread in the air, Elena watched Vincent transform completely. Gone was the dangerous man from the news reports. In his place sat someone who genuinely enjoyed Michael's stories, who asked Elena thoughtful questions about her ideas for community programs, who made them both feel valued and heard. So, the job would involve working with 3 community centers in the neighborhood, Vincent explained over dessert. Setting up after-school programs, coordinating with local schools, organizing events for families, real work that makes a real difference. "What's the catch?" Elena asked, echoing Vincent's directness from their previous conversation. Vincent set down his coffee cup and looked directly at her. "The catch is that some people will assume you're involved in my other business. They'll judge you, maybe gossip about you. And are you asking me to be involved in your other business?" "Never. Not ever." Vincent's voice was firm. "Elena, I meant what I said. This job is completely legitimate. You'd report to Maria Santos, who runs our charitable foundation. You'd never even interact with anyone from my other operations." Elena nodded, believing him. "Then I can handle some gossip." "Mom's tougher than she looks," Michael added proudly, making Elena smile. "I can see that," Vincent said, his eyes warm on Elena's face. As they prepared to leave, Michael excused himself to the restroom, leaving Elena and Vincent alone for the first time all evening. "Can I ask you something?" Elena said. "Anything. Why is this so important to you?" "The community work, I mean." Vincent was quiet for a moment. Then, "Because I grew up in those neighborhoods. I know what it's like to have nothing, to feel like the world has written you off." His voice grew softer. "And because Michael reminded me that there are still good people doing good things, even when it's hard, especially when it's hard." Elena felt her chest tighten. "Vincent, I want to be part of that again," he continued. "I want to remember what it feels like to build something instead of just protect it." When Michael returned, chattering about the restaurant's vintage arcade game, Elena was looking at Vincent with new eyes. Not as a dangerous stranger who'd disrupted her life, but as a man trying to find his way back to something he'd lost. Walking to their building, Michael running ahead with energy from too much dessert, Vincent caught Elena's hand gently. "Elena," he said, his voice uncertain in a way that made her heart race. "I know this is complicated. I know I'm asking a lot. Trusting me." Elena stopped walking, turning to face him fully. In the streetlight, she could see vulnerability in his eyes that made him look younger. "Vincent," she said softly, "I think you're a good man, trying to do better, and I think Michael and I could help you with that. And I think," Vincent said, stepping closer, "you and Michael have already changed everything for me." As they stood there in the evening light, Elena realized that somewhere between a little boy's warning and a business dinner, she'd started falling for Vincent Romano, and for the first time in years that didn't terrify her. It excited her. 2 weeks into her new job, Elena stood in the community center on Maple Street, watching Vincent interact with a group of teenagers from the after-school program. He was helping them set up a computer lab, his expensive shirt sleeves rolled up, patiently explaining software to kids who looked at him with a mixture of awe and suspicion. "Miss Elena," called Maria Santos, the foundation director who'd become both Elena's boss and friend, "we have a problem." Elena tore her gaze away from Vincent's surprisingly gentle smile as he helped a shy girl navigate a program. "What kind of problem?" Maria pulled her aside, her face troubled. "Detective Morrison from the 15th Precinct just called. They're asking questions about our funding sources. About Vincent's involvement in the programs. Eleanor's stomach dropped. What kind of questions? The kind that suggest someone's been talking to them, someone who knows details about our operations, our budget meetings, even your hiring process. Maria's voice lowered. Elena, I think someone close to Vincent is feeding information to the police. Elena glanced back at Vincent, who was now laughing with Michael over something on the computer screen. The sight of them together always made her heart warm, but now worry crept in. How close? Elena asked. Close enough to know about last Tuesday's budget meeting. Close enough to know Vincent personally approved your salary increase. Maria's expression was grim. Elena, there are only 5 people who were in that meeting. The implications hit Elena like a cold wave. Someone Vincent trusted was betraying him. Someone who knew about her, about Michael, about the work they were doing here. Does Vincent know? Elena asked. Not yet. I wanted to talk to you first because... Maria hesitated. Because this person also knows about your relationship with Vincent. Elena felt heat flood her cheeks. We don't have a relationship. Not that kind of relationship. Maria's knowing look made Elena's protest sound hollow even to herself, because the truth was, over the past 2 weeks, something had definitely developed between them. Lingering glances during foundation meetings, Vincent's hand brushing hers when he passed her documents. The way he always asked about Michael, always found reasons to extend their conversations. And last Friday night, when Vincent had driven them home after Michael's school concert, there had been a moment. Standing by her apartment door, Vincent had looked at her with such intensity that Elena thought he might kiss her. Instead, he'd simply said goodnight, but the electricity between them had been undeniable. Elena, Maria said gently, whatever is happening between you and Vincent, it's obvious to anyone with eyes, which means it's obvious to whoever is talking to the police. Elena's blood chilled. Are you saying Michael and I are in danger? I'm saying you need to be careful, and you need to tell Vincent about this conversation. Elena looked across the room where Vincent was now showing Michael how to code a simple game. Her son was completely absorbed, his face lit up with the kind of joy Elena rarely saw. For 2 weeks, they'd both been happier than they'd been in years. Now someone was trying to destroy that. Vincent must have sensed her stare because he looked up, his expression immediately shifting to concern when he saw her face. He said something to Michael, who nodded and continued working, then walked over to Eleanor. What's wrong? His voice was low, protective. Eleanor glanced around the room full of kids and volunteers. Can we talk privately? Vincent led her to Maria's office, closing the door behind them. The moment they were alone, his professional demeanor dropped, replaced by something more intimate. Elena, you look scared. What happened? Elena told him about her conversation with Maria, watching Vincent's face grow darker with each detail. By the time she finished, his jaw was tight with barely controlled anger. 5 people were in that meeting, he said finally. 3 of them have been with me for over a decade. Vincent, Maria thinks whoever this is knows about... Eleanor hesitated. About us. Vincent stepped closer, his grey eyes intense. Eleanor, what exactly is there to know about us? The question hung in the air between them. Eleanor's heart raced as Vincent moved even closer, close enough that she could smell his cologne, could see the gold flecks in his grey eyes. I don't know, Elena whispered. What is there to know? Vincent's hand came up to cup her face gently. There's the fact that I think about you constantly. There's the fact that watching you with these kids, seeing how much you care, makes me want to be a better man. His voice grew softer. There's the fact that I'm falling in love with you. And it terrifies me because loving me puts you and Michael in danger. Elena's breath caught. Vincent, someone betraying me isn't new, Elena. People have been trying to hurt me for years. Vincent's thumb brushed across her cheek. But now, I have something to lose that matters more than anything else. I have you and Michael. Before Elena could respond, Vincent's phone buzzed. He glanced at it and his expression changed. We need to leave. Now. What's wrong? Tommy just texted. Someone called in a bomb threat on this building. Vincent's voice was calm but urgent. It's probably nothing, but we're not taking chances. As they evacuated the community center with the kids and staff, Elena realized that their quiet, careful courtship was about to become something much more dangerous, because whoever was betraying Vincent had just made it personal. The bomb threat turned out to be a false alarm, but it accomplished exactly what Elena suspected it was meant to. It reminded everyone involved with Vincent's charitable work that danger was never far away. 3 days later, Elena sat in Vincent's downtown office for the first time, surrounded by the trappings of his legitimate businesses. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered a stunning view of the city, while expensive art and leather furniture spoke of success and power. But Elena was focused on the man behind the mahogany desk, who looked like he hadn't slept in days. The detective assigned to investigate the community center threat is the same one asking questions about our funding, Vincent said, setting down a police report. Detective Morrison. He's either incredibly thorough or incredibly suspicious, or someone's feeding him information, Elena added. That's what I'm afraid of. Vincent rubbed his face tiredly. Elena, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be completely honest. Elena tensed. Okay. Have you noticed anyone watching you? Following you? Anyone new in your neighborhood, asking questions about you or Michael? Elena thought carefully. No, nothing like that. But Vincent, you've had security watching us. Wouldn't they notice if someone else was? Vincent's expression grew grim. That's just it. I pulled the security 3 days ago. Eleanor's heart stopped. You what? I thought the immediate danger had passed. I thought maybe I was being paranoid. Vincent stood, moving to the window. I was trying to give you a normal life, Elena. I was trying not to be the kind of man who controls every aspect of your existence. Elena rose and moved to stand beside him. And now? Now I think I made a mistake. Vincent turned to face her, his grey eyes dark with self-recrimination. Eleanor, someone broke into your apartment last night. The words hit Eleanor like a physical blow. What? How do you... When? The building's night security guard called me an hour ago. He knows I've been looking out for you and Michael. Vincent's hands clenched into fists. Nothing was taken, but someone went through your things. Carefully, professionally. Elena sank into the chair behind her, mind racing. We weren't there. Michael had a sleepover at his friend Danny's house, and I worked a double shift at the Meridian building because Mrs. Patterson asked me to. I know. Which means someone knew your schedule well enough to know you'd both be gone. Vincent knelt beside her chair. Eleanor, I'm so sorry, this is my fault. No, it's not. Eleanor's voice was stronger than she felt. Vincent, this is the fault of whoever is betraying you, and whoever broke into my apartment. Vincent studied her face. You're not angry? I'm terrified, Eleanor admitted, but I'm not angry at you. She reached for his hand. Vincent, I knew what I was getting into when I took this job. I knew there would be risks. Did you know you'd be falling in love with me? The question came out quietly, vulnerability clear in Vincent's voice. Elena's breath caught. Are you asking if I'm falling in love with you? I'm asking if what I told you at the community center was completely one-sided. Elena looked into Vincent's grey eyes and saw the same fear she'd been carrying, the fear of caring too much for someone whose world was dangerous, unpredictable. No, she said softly. It wasn't one-sided. Vincent's expression transformed, relief and joy replacing the worry. He leaned forward, his forehead touching hers. Elena, I want to keep you safe. I want to give you and Michael the life you deserve. His voice was barely a whisper. But I also want this. I want us. So do I, Elena whispered back. Vincent's lips were almost touching hers when his office door burst open. Tommy rushed in, face pale. Boss, we've got a problem, a big one. Vincent straightened immediately, though he kept one hand on Elena's shoulder. What kind of problem? Detective Morrison just arrested Maria Santos. Elena gasped. What? Why? Money laundering, conspiracy, racketeering. Tommy's voice was grim. They're saying she was funneling money from Vincent's other businesses through the foundation. Vincent's face went stone cold. That's impossible. Maria's books are cleaner than a church's. Boss, Tommy said carefully, they had detailed financial records, transaction logs, meeting notes, even recordings of phone conversations. Elena felt the pieces clicking together in her mind. Someone's been planning this for a long time. More than that, Vincent said slowly. Someone's been using our legitimate charitable work as a weapon against us. Elena realized with growing horror that their relationship, their work with the community, Michael's involvement, it had all been part of someone's larger plan. Vincent, she said quietly, what if the person betraying you isn't just feeding information to the police? What if they're actively trying to destroy everything you care about? Vincent's grey eyes met hers, and Elena saw that he'd reached the same terrifying conclusion. Someone wasn't just betraying Vincent Romano. Someone was systematically destroying his life, piece by piece. And Elena and Michael were right in the crossfire. Elena couldn't sleep that night, despite Vincent's insistence that she and Michael stay in his penthouse for safety. The apartment was stunning. Floor-to-ceiling windows, modern art, a kitchen that belonged in magazines. But all Elena could think about was Maria Santos sitting in a jail cell for crimes she didn't commit. She found Vincent on the terrace, looking out over the city lights, a glass of whiskey in his hand. "You should be sleeping," he said without turning around. "So should you." Elena moved to stand beside him. "Any word on Maria?" "My lawyer's working on bail, but they're calling her a flight risk." Vincent's voice was tight with controlled anger. 25 years of clean living, and now she's facing federal charges because someone wanted to hurt me. Elena watched Vincent's profile, noting the tension in his jaw, the way his free hand gripped the railing. "This isn't your fault, isn't it?" Vincent turned to face her, and Elena was struck by the pain in his eyes. "Everyone I care about becomes a target, Elena. Maria, you, Michael. You're all in danger because of me. We're in danger because someone is lying and manipulating the system," Elena said firmly. "There's a difference." Vincent set down his glass and moved closer. "Is there? Elena, be honest. Are you starting to regret getting involved with me?" Elena looked up into his grey eyes, seeing the vulnerability he tried to hide beneath his dangerous reputation. Here was a man who controlled vast business interests, who commanded respect through fear, reduced to asking if she regretted caring about him. "Vincent," she said softly, reaching up to touch his face, "the only thing I regret is that someone is trying to destroy something beautiful before we've had a chance to see what it could become." Vincent's eyes darkened. "Elena, I'm not going anywhere," she continued. "Not because of threats, not because of danger, and definitely not because someone thinks they can scare me away from you." Vincent's control finally broke. His hands came up to frame her face, and then his lips were on hers, soft but desperate. Elena melted into the kiss, feeling weeks of tension and careful restraint finally give way to something real and powerful. When they broke apart, both breathing hard, Vincent rested his forehead against hers. "I love you," he said simply. "I know it's crazy, I know it's fast, but Elena, I love you." "I love you too," Elena whispered back, and felt Vincent's whole body relax with relief. They might have stood there forever, but Michael's voice from the doorway interrupted them. "Mom, are you okay?" Elena and Vincent stepped apart, though Vincent kept one protective hand on her back. Michael stood in the doorway wearing pajamas Vincent had somehow procured, looking smaller than usual in the enormous space. "I'm fine, sweetheart," Elena said. "Did we wake you?" "I couldn't sleep. This place is really big and quiet." Michael looked between them. Are you boyfriend and girlfriend now?" Elena felt her cheeks heat up, but Vincent answered without hesitation. "If that's okay with you, Michael. Your mom means a lot to me, and so do you." Michael considered this seriously. "Does this mean the bad people trying to hurt you will try to hurt us too?" Elena's heart clenched at her 11-year-old son having to ask such a question, but Vincent knelt down to Michael's level. "I'm going to make sure nothing happens to you or your mom," Vincent said seriously. "That's a promise, Michael. But yes, there might be some danger, and I need you to be extra careful and do exactly what your mom or I tell you. Can you do that?" Michael nodded solemnly. "Are you going to marry my mom?" Elena nearly choked, but Vincent smiled. "I hope so someday if she'll have me." "Cool," Michael said pragmatically. "Can I have hot chocolate? I saw you have one of those fancy machines in the kitchen." As Vincent led Michael inside to make hot chocolate, Elena remained on the terrace for a moment, processing what had just happened. In the space of 5 minutes, she'd admitted she loved Vincent Romano, been kissed by him and heard him tell her son he wanted to marry her. 6 weeks ago, her biggest worry had been making rent. Now she was in love with a man whose enemies had just framed an innocent woman for federal crimes. Elena's phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "Enjoying Vincent's penthouse. You should ask him about his first wife. Ask him what happened to her when his enemies found out he loved her." Elena's blood turned to ice. Vincent had been married before, and something had happened to his wife because of his dangerous life? Elena stared at the text, realizing that whoever was behind the attacks had just given her the most devastating weapon imaginable, doubt about the man she'd just confessed to love. From inside, she could hear Michael's laughter and Vincent's warm voice explaining how the espresso machine worked. The domestic scene was so normal, so perfect. But Elena couldn't shake the feeling that she'd just been warned about something terrible, something Vincent hadn't told her about his past, Something that suggested loving Vincent Romano came with a price higher than she'd ever imagined. Elena lay awake most of the night, staring at the text message and listening to Vincent's peaceful breathing beside her. They'd fallen asleep on the couch after Michael had finally gone to bed, Vincent's arm around her protectively. Now, in the grey light of dawn, Elena studied the man she'd fallen in love with and wondered what else she didn't know about him. Vincent's eyes opened, immediately alert in the way Elena was learning was typical of him. "You're awake early." "I couldn't sleep." Elena showed him the text message. "Vincent, we need to talk." Vincent read the message, his expression growing dark. "Elena, you were married before." It wasn't a question. Vincent sat up, running his hands through his hair. "Yes, a long time ago." "What happened to her?" Vincent was quiet for a long moment, then, "Her name was Isabella. We were young, stupid. I thought I could keep her separate from my business, keep her safe." His voice grew rough. "I was wrong." Elena felt her heart breaking for the pain in Vincent's voice, but she had to know. "What happened, Vincent?" "The Torino family kidnapped her. They wanted to use her to force me out of certain territories." Vincent's hands clenched into fists. "I gave them everything they asked for, but it wasn't enough. He paused, struggling. "They killed her anyway." "Killed her?" "To send a message." Elena's hand flew to her mouth. "Oh my God, Vincent! I swore I'd never let anyone get that close again. I swore I'd never give my enemies another weapon to use against me." Vincent turned to look at Elena, his grey eyes haunted. "And then I met you and Michael, and I broke that promise to myself." Elena reached for his hand. "How long ago did this happen?" 8 years. Isabella and I were married for 2 years before—" Vincent's voice broke slightly. "Elena, I should have told you, but I was terrified that if you knew what happened to the last woman I loved, you'd run." Elena studied Vincent's face, seeing the genuine pain, the fear of losing her, but she also saw something else, the determination that had kept him alive in his dangerous world. "Vincent," she said slowly, "the person who sent this text, they wanted me to find out this way. They wanted me to doubt you, to be afraid." "Are you afraid?" Elena considered the question seriously. Was she afraid? Yes. Was she going to let that fear destroy what she and Vincent were building? "I'm terrified," Elena admitted, "but not of you. I'm afraid of losing what we have because someone else is manipulating us." Vincent's relief was visible. "Elena, I will never let anyone hurt you or Michael the way they hurt Isabella." "Never? I believe you." Elena moved closer, taking his face in her hands. "But Vincent, we need to find out who's doing this. We need to stop running defense and start fighting back." Vincent's phone rang before he could respond. It was Tommy, and from Vincent's expression, the news wasn't good. "What do you mean, released?" Vincent's voice was sharp. Elena could only hear one side of the conversation, but Vincent's face told her everything she needed to know. "How is that possible? The evidence was—" "I see." Vincent's jaw tightened. "And Detective Morrison, what's his story now?" When Vincent hung up, Elena was afraid to ask. "Maria's been released. All charges dropped." Elena blinked. "That's good news, isn't it?" "It would be, except the evidence that led to her arrest has mysteriously disappeared, and Detective Morrison is claiming he never saw any financial records linking the foundation to my other businesses." Elena felt pieces clicking together. "Someone set this whole thing up and then pulled the plug, which means it was never about destroying the foundation or getting Maria arrested." Vincent's voice was grim. "It was about getting us here, isolated, dependent on each other." Elena's blood chilled. "Vincent, if someone wanted to manipulate us into being together, into caring about each other, then they're planning something bigger." Vincent stood abruptly. "Something that requires me to have something precious to lose." Elena's phone buzzed with another text from the unknown number. "Now that you know about Isabella, you understand the stakes. Vincent Romano always pays his debts. The question is, what's your life worth to him?" Elena showed the message to Vincent, watching his face go white with rage and fear. "They're going to take you," Vincent said quietly, "just like they took Isabella." "Then we don't let them," Elena said firmly. "Vincent, we're not helpless victims. We're smarter than this." Vincent looked at Elena with a mixture of love and desperation. "Elena, maybe you should take Michael and leave the city, just until this is over." "No." Elena's voice was firm. "Running didn't save Isabella, and it won't save us. Whoever is doing this has been planning it for months, maybe years. They'll find us anywhere. Then what do you suggest?" Elena stood, moving to the window to look out over the city. I suggest we stop reacting to their moves and start making some of our own. What do you mean? Elena turned back to Vincent, her mind racing with possibilities. I mean, we find out who's betraying you, and then we turn the tables on them. For the first time since the nightmare began, Vincent smiled. You know, Isabella never would have suggested fighting back. She would have wanted to hide. I'm not Isabella, Elena said simply. No, Vincent said, moving to pull her into his arms. You're not. You're stronger. Elena leaned into Vincent's embrace, feeling his arms tighten protectively around her. But even as she drew comfort from his strength, her mind was working. Someone had orchestrated everything from Michael's warning about the first bomb to Maria's arrest to the revelation about Isabella. Someone who knew Vincent well enough to predict exactly how he'd react, how he'd try to protect the people he loved. Elena pulled back to look at Vincent. The meeting where you decided to increase my salary, you said only 5 people were there. Yes, me, Maria, Tommy, and my 2 business managers, Frank and David. Vincent, Elena said slowly, what if the person betraying you isn't just someone who was in that meeting? What if they're someone who suggested the meeting in the first place? Vincent's eyes sharpened. What are you thinking? I'm thinking, Elena said, that we need to find out which one of your trusted associates has been playing a very long game. The next morning, Elena sat in Vincent's office watching him pace, while Tommy and Maria waited for instructions. Michael was safely at school with 2 of Vincent's most trusted guards disguised as substitute teachers, a precaution that broke Elena's heart, but felt necessary. Let's go through this systematically, Elena said, her mind sharp despite the fear coursing through her. Who suggested the meeting where you approved my salary increase? Vincent stopped pacing. Frank Morrison. He said we needed to review community funding allocations. Morrison, Maria repeated. Wait. Isn't that the same name as the detective who arrested me? Tommy looked up sharply from his phone. Boss, that can't be a coincidence. Elena felt pieces clicking together. Vincent, what's Frank's relationship to Detective Morrison? I never asked. They have the same last name, but Morrison isn't uncommon. Vincent's voice trailed off as realization dawned. Tommy, run a background check on both of them. Now, while Tommy worked on his laptop, Elena studied the timeline they'd written on Vincent's whiteboard. Look at the pattern. Every major incident happened after Frank suggested a meeting or a change in protocol. Frank recommended we reduce security on your building, Vincent said slowly. Frank suggested moving the community center funds to a more transparent accounting system. And Frank was the one who insisted I needed a higher security clearance to do my job properly, Maria added, which gave him access to all my financial records. Tommy looked up from his computer, his face pale. Boss, Detective Morrison is Frank Morrison's younger brother. And there's more. Frank Morrison's been in debt to the Torino family for the past 2 years. Gambling debts. Elena's stomach dropped. So, the Torinos have been using Frank to get information about Vincent's operations. Not just information, Vincent said grimly. They've been using him to manipulate me, to get me to care about you and Michael so they could use you against me. Elena felt a chill of horror. Vincent, are you saying our entire relationship was orchestrated by your enemies? Vincent turned to face her, his expression fierce. No, Elena, what we feel for each other is real. But they've been watching, waiting for me to care about someone again so they could use it against me. Elena's phone buzzed. Another text from the unknown number. Vincent's figured it out by now. Good for him. But it doesn't matter. You have 1 hour to come to Pier 47 alone or Michael doesn't make it home from school today. Elena's blood turned to ice. She showed the text to Vincent, watching his face go white. They have Michael, Elena whispered. Vincent was already on his phone, calling Michael's guards. The conversation was brief and terrifying. The guards are unconscious. Michael's gone. Elena felt the room spin. Her 11-year-old son, her brave little boy who'd saved Vincent's life, was in the hands of people who'd killed Vincent's first wife. I'm going to Pier 47, Elena said, standing. No, Vincent's voice was firm. Elena, this is exactly what they want. They want to use you to control me, just like they tried to use Isabella. And what's the alternative? Elena's voice rose. Let them hurt Michael. We get Michael back another way, Vincent said. Elena, if you go to that pier, you'll both die, just like Isabella died. Elena stared at Vincent, seeing the fear in his eyes, the desperation, but she also saw something else, the assumption that she was as helpless as his first wife had been. "Vincent," Elena said quietly, "I'm not going to the pier alone. Elena, I'm going with backup, with a plan, and with the knowledge that Frank Morrison has been betraying you for 2 years." Elena turned to Tommy and Maria. "Frank doesn't know we've figured him out yet, right?" Tommy shook his head. "I checked his computer remotely. He's still in the building, still acting normal. Then we have an advantage." Elena's mind was racing. "Vincent, call Frank. Tell him about the text. Tell him Michael's been taken. Act desperate. Ask him to help coordinate a rescue." Vincent's eyes sharpened. "And then we see where Frank leads us. Because if he's working with the Torinos, he'll want to be there to see you broken." Maria leaned forward. "It's risky, Elena. If something goes wrong, if we do nothing, Michael dies." Elena's voice was steady despite her terror. "And if I go to that pier alone like they want, we both die, and Vincent lives with another tragedy he couldn't prevent." Eleanor moved to Vincent, taking his hands in hers. "I won't be Isabella, Vincent. I won't be a victim they used to destroy you, but I need you to trust me." Vincent studied her face for a long moment, then nodded slowly. "What do you need?" Eleanor smiled grimly. "I need you to make Frank Morrison think he's about to win the biggest victory of his life." As Vincent reached for his phone to call Frank, Eleanor realized that the scared cleaning lady who'd accepted a job offer 3 weeks ago was gone. In her place stood a woman who would do anything to protect her son and the man she loved. The Torinos had made one critical mistake. They'd assumed Eleanor Chen would be easy to break. They were about to learn how wrong they were. Elena crouched behind a shipping container at Pier 47, her heart hammering as she watched Frank Morrison check his phone for the 3rd time in 5 minutes. Vincent's plan was working. Frank believed he was coordinating a rescue operation, not walking into a trap. Through her earpiece, she could hear Vincent's voice. "Frank's moving toward the warehouse at the end of the pier. Tommy's team is in position on the north side." Eleanor adjusted the small camera clipped to her jacket and whispered back, "I see Michael. He's in the warehouse, tied to a chair, but he looks okay." What Elena didn't say was that she also saw Antonio Torino himself, Vincent's most dangerous enemy, standing guard over her son. This wasn't just about kidnapping. This was about ending Vincent Romano once and for all. "Eleanor," Vincent's voice was tense, "I need you to wait for my signal. Don't move until—" Eleanor's earpiece went dead. At the same moment, Frank Morrison appeared around the side of her shipping container, pointing a gun at her chest. "Sorry, Elena, but Vincent can't hear you anymore." Frank's smile was cold. "The Torinos pay me very well to make sure their plans work perfectly." Elena raised her hands slowly, her mind racing. "Frank, you don't have to do this. Vincent trusted you." "Vincent's trust doesn't pay my gambling debts," Frank sneered. "Besides, this has been a long time coming. Antonio's been waiting 8 years for revenge for what happened to his nephew during that territory war." Elena's blood chilled as pieces clicked together. "Isabella. Vincent didn't tell me she was Antonio's niece. Smart girl. Isabella was supposed to marry into another crime family. Unite territories. Instead, she fell in love with Vincent Romeo and ruined years of planning." Frank gestured with his gun toward the warehouse. "Move." As Elena walked toward the warehouse, she noticed something Frank had missed. Her camera was still recording, still transmitting. If Vincent's technical team was monitoring the right frequency, they might be able to see what was happening even without audio. Elena stumbled slightly, making sure the camera got a clear view of Frank's face and the gun in his hand. Then she stumbled again, this time making sure to capture the license plates of the 3 black cars parked near the warehouse. "Stop stalling," Frank snapped. Inside the warehouse, Elena's heart broke at the sight of Michael, tied up but alert, his dark eyes wide with fear and determination. Antonio Torino stood beside him, a man in his 60s with silver hair and cold eyes. "Elena Chen," Antonio said pleasantly, "you're even prettier than the photographs." "Let my son go," Elena said firmly. "Your fight is with Vincent, not with an 11-year-old boy." "My fight is with anyone Vincent cares about," Antonio replied. "You see, when he killed my nephew during that warehouse raid 8 years ago, he took away my chance for legitimate expansion. Isabella was going to be the bridge between our families." Elena kept her expression neutral while her mind worked furiously. "So you killed her for revenge." "I killed her to make Vincent suffer, just like I'm going to kill you and your boy." Antonio's smile was chilling. "But first, Vincent gets to watch. Frank, call him." Frank dialed Vincent's number on speaker. When Vincent answered, his voice was tight with controlled panic. "Frank, did you find them?" "I found them, boss, but I'm afraid there's been a complication." Eleanor heard Vincent's sharp intake of breath as he realized the truth. "Hello, Vincent." Antonio's voice filled the warehouse. "It's been too long." "Antonio." Vincent's voice was deadly quiet. "Let them go. Your fight is with me. My fight is with your happiness," Antonio replied. Just like 8 years ago, Eleanor caught Michael's eye and saw her brave son watching everything, clearly looking for an opportunity to help. She gave him the slightest shake of her head, hoping he'd understand to stay still. "What do you want?" Vincent asked. "I want you to come here alone and watch me kill the woman you love and her son. Then I want you to live with that grief for exactly as long as you lived with Isabella's death. 8 years. Then I'll kill you too." Elena's mind raced. 8 years of planning, all for this moment of revenge. But Antonio had made one mistake. He was so focused on making Vincent suffer that he'd forgotten Eleanor wasn't a helpless victim. "Vincent!" Eleanor called out, hoping the camera was still transmitting. "Don't come here. It's not worth—" Frank hit her across the face, cutting off her words. Eleanor staggered but remained standing, tasting blood. "Eleanor!" Vincent's voice was anguished. "Such a brave woman," Antonio mused. "Just like Isabella was at first, before we broke her spirit." Eleanor's anger flared, but she kept her voice level. "You didn't break Isabella's spirit. You just proved you're too weak to build anything, so you have to destroy what other people create." Antonio's eyes went cold. Brave words from a woman about to die. "Maybe," Elena said, "but at least I'm not a pathetic old man whose only accomplishment is making other people as miserable as he is." Antonio raised his gun, fury replacing his cold calculation. "You know what? I think I'll kill you first. Let the boy watch. Then make Vincent listen to his screams." Eleanor smiled grimly. "You know what I think? I think you've forgotten something important." "What's that?" "You never asked how Vincent found out about Frank's betrayal so quickly." Antonio frowned. And Elena saw Frank's expression change from confidence to uncertainty. "You see," Elena continued, "we've been recording everything. Every word you've said about killing Isabella. Every confession about your years of planning." Elena's smile widened. "Vincent's not just coming here to rescue us. He's coming here to finish this once and for all." The warehouse doors exploded inward as Vincent and his team stormed inside, and Elena threw herself sideways, pulling Michael's chair down with her as gunfire erupted around them. The war that had started 8 years ago with Isabella's death was about to end tonight. 6 months later, Elena stood in the sunlit kitchen of Vincent's penthouse, watching him help Michael with his algebra homework at the breakfast bar. The domestic scene still felt like a miracle after everything they'd survived. The shootout at Pier 47 had ended with Antonio Torino and Frank Morrison in custody, facing federal charges for kidnapping, murder and racketeering. Vincent's recording equipment had captured every word of Antonio's confession about Isabella's murder, finally giving Vincent the justice he'd sought for 8 years. More importantly, it had given him closure. "Mom, Vincent says if I keep improving in math, he'll teach me how to calculate compound interest for investing," Michael announced, looking up from his worksheet with excitement. "Does he now?" Elena smiled, moving to ruffle her son's hair. "And what exactly are you planning to invest in?" "College tuition," Michael said seriously. "Vincent says education is the best investment anyone can make." Elena's heart warmed as she watched Vincent's proud smile. Over the past 6 months, she'd watched this dangerous man transform into something she'd never expected. A father figure who took Michael to baseball games, helped with homework, and worried about teaching him good values. "Speaking of education," Vincent said, "I have something for both of you." He pulled out 2 envelopes, handing one to Elena and one to Michael. Elena opened hers to find acceptance letters to 3 different universities, all with full scholarships for their social work programs. "Vincent," Elena breathed, "how did you—" "I may have made some calls, mentioned your incredible work with the community programs." Vincent's smile was slightly sheepish. "Elena, you've helped transform those neighborhoods. These universities would be lucky to have you." Elena felt tears threaten. "But the foundation, my job, will be waiting for you when you graduate, with a much better salary and the credentials to expand the program statewide." Michael was staring at his own envelope. Vincent, this is a boarding school application. Elena's heart skipped, but Vincent quickly explained. Only if you want to, Michael. It's a great school with an excellent science program, but it's in the city, so you'd be home every weekend. Elena watched her son's face light up as he read about advanced science labs and computer programming courses. Everything Vincent was offering them was generous, thoughtful, designed to give them the best possible future. But Elena had learned to look beyond the surface with Vincent Romeo. "What aren't you telling us?" she asked quietly. Vincent's smile faded slightly. "The Torino organization is finished, but there are always other threats, always other people who might try to use you against me." "Vincent," Elena moved closer, "are you trying to send us away?" "I'm trying to give you choices," Vincent said carefully. "Elena, I love you more than I thought possible. I love Michael like he was my own son. But I also know that loving me will always come with risks." Elena studied Vincent's face, seeing the fear he was trying to hide. Even after everything they'd been through, after proving they could fight their enemies together, he was still afraid of bringing danger into their lives. "Michael," Elena said, not taking her eyes off Vincent, "can you give Vincent and me a few minutes alone?" Michael nodded, gathering his homework. "Are you guys going to fight about whether we're safe enough to stay?" Elena blinked at her son's perceptiveness. "Maybe." "Good," Michael said firmly. "Vincent, Mom's way tougher than you think she is. And I like having a family that fights for each other instead of against each other." After Michael left, Elena moved to stand directly in front of Vincent. "6 months ago, you told me you loved me and wanted to marry me someday," she said quietly. I do. "Then stop trying to protect me from a life with you and start planning that life." Vincent's eyes searched her face. "Elena, you don't understand." "I understand perfectly." Elena reached up to frame his face with her hands. "I understand that you're terrified of losing someone you love again. I understand that you think keeping me at a distance will keep me safe." Vincent's hands came up to cover hers. "It will." "No, it won't. Vincent, the safest place for Michael and me is right here with you, building something beautiful together." Elena's voice grew stronger. "I'm not Isabella. I'm not going to be content hiding in the background hoping danger doesn't find me. Elena, I'm going to be your partner in everything. In business, in charity work, in defending what we've built." Elena stepped closer. "And if you try to send me away to protect me, I'll just come back. Because I love you, and love doesn't run from danger. It faces it together." Vincent stared at her for a long moment, then suddenly laughed. "You know, Antonio was wrong about you." "How so?" "He thought you were my weakness. He never realized you're actually my strength." Vincent dropped to one knee, pulling a ring box from his pocket. Elena gasped as he opened it to reveal a stunning diamond surrounded by emeralds. "Elena Chen, you've saved my life in every way that matters. You've given me a son I'm proud of, a purpose worth fighting for, and a love worth building a future around." Vincent's voice was steady but emotional. "Will you marry me?" Elena looked down at this powerful, dangerous, surprisingly tender man who turned her life upside down in the most wonderful way. "Yes," she whispered, then louder, "Yes." As Vincent slipped the ring onto her finger, Michael's voice called from the living room. "Did she say yes? Can I come back now?" Elena laughed, tears streaming down her face. "Yes, you can come back." Michael raced into the kitchen, whooping with joy. "Does this mean Vincent's officially going to be my dad?" Vincent stood, pulling both Elena and Michael into his arms. "If that's what you want, then yes." "Cool," Michael said pragmatically. "Can I call you Dad now, or do I have to wait until after the wedding?" Vincent's eyes filled with tears. "You can call me whatever you want, son." As Elena stood in Vincent's arms, watching him embrace Michael, she thought about how dramatically their lives had changed since a brave little boy had shouted a warning to a dangerous stranger. What had started with a bomb threat had become something beautiful, a family forged by courage, strengthened by love, and protected by the determination to fight for what mattered most.